In this video, I'm going to show you a very simple, low-tech approach to taking 10-foot long, half-inch EMT, metal EMT pipe, and bending it into low tunnel hoops that are 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall. One question would be, why would you even want these hoops? Well, in a cool climate, we just had our first frost in the fall, and to be able in a very simple and fast way to push these in around garden beds and be able to stretch greenhouse poly over them, it's incredibly helpful for season extension, and the price is very, very low. These generally cost between $2 to $3 a piece. If they're stored properly out of the elements during the seasons when you're not using them, they should last 10 plus years, no problem. When I first made these, I borrowed a tool from a friend called a hoop bender, which you could do. That by all means, you can look them up online if you don't want to get into the DIY stuff. Hoop bender is about $50 plus plus shipping, and it's manufactured metal. You can get it. It makes it pretty easy, but it doesn't make it, utterly easy. It makes a nice smooth curve. But for me, to be able to bend these in a very simple way is pretty valuable. I temporarily set this up. Now, the other thing I want to mention is you can search on YouTube or otherwise for different systems, and people sometimes will do this with screws or all sorts of different ways. Maybe I'll put some links to other options for you in the description. But all I simply did was hammered in some garden stakes that I had around. So these could be branches, these could be little pieces of rebar or scrap metal that you have. You can be creative with this process. And I just simply used a sledgehammer and measured out what I needed. If you have one that's already bent, you can use that as your template and just match that. But what I'm doing is setting an arc of these sticks. The more you have, the finer the resolution. In other words, the less bumps you'll have in your turn. And it is roughly, or ideally, 48 inches wide, so 4 feet wide in this arch. And you could hammer in a stake and take a string to draw out a nice 2-foot diameter, 2-foot radius from there to describe these. But 4 feet wide, you can see the shape here. The beginning of the curve happens at around 16 to 18 inches. So you can see that right around 16 to 18 is where it starts to bend. And the stake I put down here represents where I want to start my tube, and it's on the outside. I start it where the bottom of it matches this first stick, which has been measured to be 16 inches-ish from where the curve begins. You can see this is a very rough and ready approach. You can probably already get the gist of what's going to happen here. This tube bends pretty easily, and especially if you're on the far end, you can simply walk it around and bring it over. Now, it relaxes a bit, and so this is not exactly perfect, but the beautiful part with all this is you can step on it and bend it just a little here or there. The more time you want to spend with that, that's up to you. If you want to get it absolutely perfect, that's great. If you feel like it has to be absolutely perfect, buy a hoop bender. But if you want to do it yourself and you don't mind a little kink here or there, that's a perfectly serviceable 4-foot low tunnel hoop made just from a lawn and some sticks hammered in. For what it's worth, this took about 5 to 10 minutes to bend this many hoops. What I tend to do is once in a great while go and buy a whole lot of the 10-foot tubes all at once, or the pipes all at once. They're much lower price if you buy them in bulk. Food for thought might be talk to some friends and neighbors. Maybe as a collective you want to buy a whole bunch of them, and then at one person's site you can bend them. These store nicely, very, very small and compact. You can just lean them up against the shady side of a garage or somewhere out of the rain and snow. And then when you need them, they generally, in the cool season, push into soft ground without much fuss. I've seen people hammer in rebar before, but we've had just fine, no problems pushing it into the ground to straddle a bed. If you didn't get it exactly 4 feet when you bent it, fine. When you push it in, get one side exactly right and then fuss with the other to get it where you want it and push it in, and it's 4 feet. I'm gonna save this for another video as far as going into more detail of how we actually stretch greenhouse poly over these and make the end walls and ventilation and all that. But you may wanna just make one and get on with it. How would you attach poly or some sort of cover onto this? Well, here is a large binder clip. You can get these in bulk. I bought these off of eBay. Maybe there's a outlet for used office supplies. Maybe you work at an office and you can get these. These just magically clip over 1/2 inch EMT incredibly well. They're very sturdy, and then they give you good, easy access. And so what I like to do in general is where the plastic comes down to the ground is use these on the lower end so that gives us access to lift the plastic and get under. I'll show this in more detail in another video, but these are 3/4 inch PVC tubing that in a very sketchy way I ran through a table saw mounted to a board to cut about 1/3 of it off, and then use sandpaper to smooth it so it doesn't puncture the plastic. And these make more permanent clips that hold onto plastic very nicely. It's very low cost to have these. This is a great winter project. I have shorter ones for some applications, longer ones if I want a really good bind on a very windy spot. But having a bucket of these and a bucket of these will let you attach most sorts of either remay or poly onto these. So here is just one of many ways of approaching the idea of season extension. We've had really great success with these. We really appreciate these as in their ability to work in the landscape, and the price is great. This is a very simple way to get started. By all means, improve it, make it better. Share some notes with us. How have you done this in a way that's much better than we have? I'm sure there are a lot of options. Last thing I want to mention, if you set these up, strong consideration is to call local farms and greenhouses, nurseries. Do they have greenhouse plastic that they're scrapping? A lot of farms will get rid of their plastic on their hoop houses or their greenhouses every 3 or 4 years. These are perfect for receiving offcuts of old plastic. All you need is a 10-foot section by however long your bed is. And so a lot of times there are greenhouses that have rips and tears that you can cut those parts out, use those for other things, and have nice sections of greenhouse plastic that still has some life left in it, and you don't have to buy new plastic to give nice season extension to your hot peppers or your broccolis or whoever it may be. So I hope that works for you, and happy bending.